Well, hi everybody. Welcome to my channel. I'm Todd Banner. Well, you might have noticed that there was a bit of a hiatus in my videos, but you know, we're selling our house and put it on the market. We have a great realtor, Erica. She's amazing. So she priced it just right. And we ended up getting 4 offers. Bidding war. We've accepted one of those offers. And yesterday we had the inspection. The day before we had the appraisal. So if everything works out all right, we should have our house sold. So that's pretty cool. But today, and I had mentioned earlier in earlier videos that I bought a Lumix LX100 Mark II, Panasonic Lumix LX100 Mark II. And the reason I did is Panasonic said they've discontinued this. And there seems to be debate about that. People are saying, oh, it was only discontinued in Japan. I don't think that's true. It was Panasonic Japan announcing that they were not going to produce this camera anymore. So I bought it back around Christmas, got 18 months, no interest financing on it, which is pretty cool, one of the reasons I did. And actually for a while, I got this for around $800. For a while, this went up to just under $1,000. It seems to have dropped somewhat, but it's not back down to where it was. So it's a pity though, because this is a really good little camera. And you know, I saw this story online about Tik Tokkers who have suddenly discovered that real cameras actually give you better pictures than even top of the line phones do. And they do. I mean, phones, problem with phones is most of them over sharpen, and I don't know that it's possible to turn that down. It should be. If phone manufacturers are serious, they'd give us the ability to tone that down without having to shoot raw, just like cameras do. Specifically, the LX100 Mark II, which is of course the updated version of the first one, is a nice compact camera with a 4/3 sensor, and it's the 20 megapixel or version of the 20 megapixel 4/3 sensor. It does not shoot a full 20 megapixels. It has a multi-aspect ratio setting. There's a little lever up here on the top of the camera that lets you adjust from the native 4:3 aspect ratio to 1:1 to 16:9 to 3:2. So, and those are separate crops. Those are not crops of the 4:3 native aspect ratio. They are, if you look at the image circle and envision different crops with the corners of the crop at the edge of the image circle, that's what this does. So the 16:9 ratio is actually the widest. It's over 5,000 pixels on the wide end. The only one that doesn't do that is the 1:1, the square, because it crops in from to a square, because it's kind of not possible to actually do a square the size of the image circle with this sensor. But things I like about this camera, you know, it is old school. It's got the old school shutter speed dial. It's got an aperture ring, 24 to 75 millimeter equivalent f1.7 to 2.8 lens, so variable aperture lens. But has, again, the shutter speed dial, the aperture, the exposure compensation dial right under your thumb where it ought to be. And although on the shutter speed dial you have full stop increments, you can use the back dial to access the third stops between those. So, which I discovered quite by accident, but very intelligent design. Image quality on this, it's fine. It's actually very, very good. It is very close to what you're going to get out of the 20 megapixel micro four thirds cameras. That crop down to 17 for 4/3 is, for the 4/3 ratio, is not extreme. You do get, if you do go to 3:2, you get, I think, 16 megapixels, and the panoramic 16:9. Even though it is the widest in pixel dimensions, it is the narrowest, obviously, in vertical, and so it is 15 megapixels. But quite honestly, in this day and age of AI upsizing, it's not a huge issue. You can still print big from the images on this camera. Another thing I really like about this camera is when I'm out and when I'm shooting photojournalism for our local paper, I'm to the point, I don't want to carry two bodies. I don't want to carry a G9 plus a G95 or two G9s if I had those. I want to keep things as simple as possible. So what I found is this is really handy to have if I'm in a situation where I'm shooting a telephoto shot, but then I also have to grab wider shots and I don't want to change lenses. Another thing I really like about this, and I used to do this when I had the GX85s. I had those until I got my G9. And I used the GX85 when I was shooting events and had it set to L monochrome. That didn't have the L monochrome D profile, but I had that set to L monochrome so that I could grab available light. And I'd use the 20mm f1.7 for this, so I could shoot available light black and white while I was using the G9 with 12 to 35 and a flash. So I'm doing the same thing now with this. I've done some events where I have this thing set to L monochrome D. I shoot RAW plus JPEG, so if the color version is needed, I still have that. But it's really handy. I mean, it's really nice to have this little camera available for that. And there have been some times when doing photojournalism when I have not needed anything larger. I think I mentioned in the previous video that I had to do portraits of a dentist with patients for a story that was being done on this gentleman. And I simply went with the LX100 Mark II and a Godox TT350 flash. And this flash is quite a bit under $100, and it's about the perfect size for this. Panasonic sells that little, I forget the number, but they do sell a little flash that actually the LX100, the original one, came with it. LX100 Mark II does not. So they have this little flash that plugs in here. It's a little tiny little thing, but it is powered from the camera battery. So you're going to use your camera battery, and actually if you look at the hot shoe on this camera, and the GX85 was the same way, there's an extra contact. It's gold, the others are silver. So there's actually a total of 5 contacts on this rather than 4, which is what's on the G9, G95. And that's a power supply contact. But I don't see any reason to really get that little flash as long as you have the Godox. And also with this fast lens, a lot of times you can shoot available light, and I have shot this thing up to 6400 ISO. And they look fine. The JPEGs come out. I mean, if JPEGs, even with the noise reduction turned down to a minimum, the JPEGs look fine. RAWs are going to have a little noise in it. If you've got even just the standard Lightroom noise reduction, does an okay job on that. Topaz Photo AI does a wonderful job on that, so not a huge issue. Now, there are a few minor things that I don't like about this camera. I mean, they're relatively minor. First one is there is no mode dial, which is fine because this is old school manual controls, and because there's no mode dial, this camera still has the intelligent auto setting that all Panasonics have, but it's accessible by a button right behind the shutter. And that button is really easy to hit, and so you can inadvertently turn on the intelligent auto function. If you go into the custom settings, you actually can change that from an instant press to a press and hold. Solves that problem. So there's a function on this camera, and I think most point and shoots have this. The Canons I've used have this. It's a lens resume function. So if you zoom the lens to a particular focal length and you turn the camera off, the camera, when you turn it back on, will go to the last focal length you used. If you have that turned off, the camera simply turns on to the widest angle setting. Now, I was using that lens resume function for a while, but the problem is if you zoom to telephoto and you turn the camera on and it goes to telephoto and then, you got to zoom back out, I find it's much easier to zoom in on something. So I've switched back to having it just open to 24mm equivalent and going from there. What I don't understand, and maybe there's cameras that do this, is why they can't put in, or why they didn't include a function with a focal length preference. In other words, when I turn the camera on, make it so that it goes to 50mm right away, which is right in the middle of the zoom range on this lens. So, it seems to me that'd be rather simple to put into the firmware to essentially say, well, I mainly shoot at 35 millimeters. So I want this camera to just, when I turn it on, go to 35 millimeters or 50 millimeters or what have you. I think that would be far, far more useful. For video, this is, again, no mode dial, no dedicated video mode. So you access videos with the little red button that all cameras have now somewhere on them. And the problem with that is that you don't see, especially if you got this set to 4K, because there is a 4K crop, you cannot see what your crop is until you start recording video. Now, the way around it, there is, and I added this to a soft key, there is a function that lets you do a preview. So you can, it's in the custom settings, you can have it so that you can set it to preview the 16:9 crop. Of course, the other way to deal with it is to just set it to 16:9 when you're going to shoot video on the aspect ratio adjustment, and it's going to go ahead and do that. However, again, that's going to show you the HD rather than the 4K crop. Also, and this is not as big an issue with this camera as it is with the ZS100 that I have, because that's a little bit smaller. This is the Touch AF setting. It's pretty easy to accidentally touch the screen and set the Touch AF. I've gotten to the point where I see that right away and I just hit the set button to clear that. That is, any small camera is going to have that issue. Nice thing is, even if you have that feature turned off, you can access the touch shutter using the soft keys on the right side of the screen. And now the elephant in the room, dust. So there are a lot of reports of the original LX100 getting dust on the sensor. And so there were a lot of questions when this Mark II version came out, is had Panasonic done anything to keep dust from getting on the sensor? Well, some people say they did do something and others say they didn't. So I haven't had an issue yet. One of the things that I really recommend people do not do with any of these cameras is put them in a pocket. You'll see reviews where they say, well, it doesn't fit in a pocket or it does fit in a pocket. Pockets are filthy. Pockets are absolutely filthy places. So I would not put a compact camera in a pocket, even a jacket pocket. I have a little bag that I put this in if I'm going to carry it in my jacket. And that bag I can flip inside out and even vacuum it if I want to. I had my Canon, my PowerShot G2, so like the first Canon PowerShot I had, it got dust on the sensor. It was right towards the center. It was really irritating. So it's not something that all cameras are completely immune to. I believe I've seen reports of the ZS cameras and TZ cameras getting dust on the sensor. I think you have to just be aware that you want to not just throw this in a pocket or even a jacket pocket. You're really probably asking to have dust get in there, because dust, I don't know if you noticed, dust gets everywhere. So that's it for now. I'm going to do a little slideshow images, and I think I got one video clip in there of a train coming through the metro station here in Oak Park. So I'll give you an idea of what the camera can do. And I will say, regarding the aspect ratio adjustment, I've been shooting quite a bit in 16:9, and I find that it gives a real cinematic quality, obviously, because it's a cinematic format, to images, and it just does make you change the way that you look at things. Anyway, most of these shots, some shots from Chicago, got down one day on it was a really crappy day, so these are all kind of gray. Good day for black and white. But they're shot from out around here, and I hope you enjoy them. And if this was helpful to you, don't forget to hit that like button. It's a big help to me. If you're a subscriber so far, I really appreciate it. It's a big help to me. I was surprised how, after I hit that 1,000 mark, how quickly it went up another 100. So it's pretty cool. And I'm really close on the viewing hours. So that should happen, I'm guessing, within a few weeks. But that's it. The Lumix LX100 Mark II. I'm Todd Banner. I will see you next time.